Hello, travelers and Targonians. My name is TVSkyne, and, well, I didn't get to do this back when the thing first came out, which means I've probably missed the moment when this thing was relevant in the algorithm, but you know what? Screw the numbers, my voice is back, and I want to talk about this damn animated short. This is Call of the Mountain, the animated short that Riot put out to celebrate the release of the Call of the Mountain Targon blah blah expansion whatever for Legends of Runeterra. It is created once again by the studio Unimage, which is a French studio. Maybe they're called Unit Image, who knows? I'm never sure about names. Which is also the same studio that created the Darius cinematic that was used to promote the game right around launch time, and they've also done other work for Riot as well, all of it of an exceptionally high quality, and this is no different with this particular short. So, we'll do the animation breakdown thing as we get into this, but before we do that, we'll do a reaction video, sorta, kinda, in the sense that we'll let the thing play, and I'll pause every once in a while, and I'll give you some thoughts and perspectives on what I am thinking as the thing progresses. But it's not really fair to call it a reaction, because I've watched this thing 14 million times, and I kind of already know exactly what I'm gonna say, so a sort of, kind of, maybe reaction style-ish thing. Anyway, let's just get into it. And this is where I pause for the first time, because this is a very clever way to introduce our central character. A couple of central things, actually. First of all, it introduces the Celestial, the realm of the stars, and all of this good stuff. And then it tells us exactly the relationship of our character. Like, this is the theme of Targon, obviously, is the celestial realm, the climbing of Mount Targon to access the heavens, blah, 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 etc. And then we are told exactly what kind of relationship our protagonist character, well, one of our protagonist characters, is going to have with the thing, because she's staring into the night sky, and the night sky fills her eyes, and essentially, it also fills her mind. Like, this is the thing that she cares about, the thing that, something that's important to her, that means a lot to her. And without saying anything, without any exposition, without any dialogue, we already kind of get that. At this moment, it's like, oh, she's out there stargazing because the night sky and the celestial realm, and she's fascinated with stars and the things that happen in the sky. Okay, we got that. That already makes sense, which means when the next thing happens, oh, hey, a shooting star. Of course, she'd be interested in that, but hang on, wait, that's a little bit weird for a shooting star. Let's see what it's gonna do. Oh, okay, it just broke 2 mountains. Fair enough. Something weird is going on with this shooting star. But then, like, you get these scenes of destruction. Like, it literally punches through 2 mountains. Like, just wabam! And lands and explodes, but take a look at when she enters the screen. There! She's there right away. It's almost as though she already knew where it was gonna land. Interesting. She's right there, wasting no time. And again, we learn something about our character. This is someone who's perfectly happy to run straight into danger. Like, no fear, okay, there's a shooting star over there, we're gonna run towards it because this is who we are as a person. Again, very effective storytelling. This, by the way, is the Inciting Incident. There is a thing that falls down from the sky, and now here comes the call to action. Look at it, so cute! So again, efficiency of storytelling. Nothing has been said. We're 30 seconds into this thing, and already we know something about who this character is, i.e. obsessed with the stars, interesting. We know something about what the central conflict of the story is that this poor creature has clearly gotten lost from where it came from, where it's supposed to be, and the quest now for our main character is to follow this trail back to its source at the peak of Mount Targon. So, we have established the characters, we've established the stakes, and we've established what must be done. This is the call to adventure. And this entire short is structured really, really tightly around very classic storytelling tropes. Like, it's not strictly a 3-act structure in the traditional sense, because there's no refusal of the call, for example, but what there is like this very clear division in the storytelling about, like, where are we in the story, how we're supposed to approach this. And the reason that that works is that we have seen 100 million stories exactly like it thousands of times before. And that can be a mark against a story that's, okay, it's formulaic and boring, but not in this case, because it's not formulaic and boring, it's formulaic and good. Like, it's a really nice execution on it, and it gives us a framework for interpreting the montage that essentially makes up the majority of the runtime of this thing. It's just like, it is just a long montage that tells you the very barest bones, like the very barest minimum that it needs to in order to suggest a larger story that can get you emotionally invested. And so this is, if you think of a story like The Hobbit, this is when Bilbo and the hobbits, Bilbo and the dwarves, rather, first set out on their adventure. This is like, oh, we're traveling through the countryside, it's lovely, we're eating food, we're having a nice time, etc., etc. This is the beginning of the adventure. This is like, these are the good times. This is the setup. This is the moment when, like, oh, the world is grand and it's full of adventure and fun stuff and things are happening. Beautiful landscapes, and you can see there's a relationship developing between the two of them where, like, they trust each other and they care for each other. Now comes the introduction of the danger element. We're ascending Mount Targon a little bit, and now we run into the first suggestion that, oh, hey, maybe maybe this isn't just going to be a nice little stroll to the top of the mountain. Maybe this is going to be dangerous and difficult, because oh god, is that Sun Lady charging right straight at this innocent girl to murder her? Well, no. In fact, Leona and Diana don't really care about our little goat herder. They're entirely too busy with one another. And this is part of the storytelling here, is that there are greater forces on Mount Targon. Like, there are grand things that exist, there are powers that just don't care about our protagonist, that have their own conflicts and their own cosmic destinies. And if you happen to get hurt when those cosmic destinies clash, or when these grand creatures do whatever the hell it is that they're going to do, sorry, on your own there, pal. You shouldn't have gotten in the way, I guess. And that's something that's going to come up again a little bit later. And by the way, yes, we're going to talk about that action animation, because that fight between Leona and Diana, ooh, was so good. So, what we have here is the first narrative climax of the story. The first, like, we build up all this tension of, oh god, these things are fighting, she's getting caught in the middle of it, there's the sunbeam coming, oh god, what's gonna happen, she grabs the rope, she gets pulled up, tension is resolved, but now we understand the stakes of climbing Mount Targon. Now we understand how dangerous that can be. So the tension of the whole story has been raised a level, even though the immediate tension of, oh god, she's gonna get fried to bits by that sunlight beam has been resolved. We still understand that, okay, this is a dangerous journey, things are not gonna get any easier from here. So, once again, a montage of travel and the relationship between the two of them once again building. This short is really, really good. We only really get like a few shots of these two characters, of the girl and the goat star, the thing that falls from the sky with the wings. We only really get a few shots of them interacting specifically as characters, but what we get there is like this, we immediately understand that they deeply, deeply enjoy each other's company, and that she's very protective of it, and it has come to care for her as well, as exemplified with this particular frame right here. So, remember what I said about how the tension level has already been raised a bit? It gets raised again here by the animation itself, because as you can see, like, okay, we've had this moment of respite, but this is clearly difficult. Like, this is tough. They're struggling through it. We have this extreme close-up on her, like, so that we really get to see, like, the tension and difficulty in her face, and, like, the strain on her posture is, like, moving forward, climbing is hard. So then we get this wide shot of this big bridge. And, like, if you're observant, you've already noticed that, hey, they seem to be, this probably should be a pillar here that doesn't seem to be there. That seems unsafe, so the tension is already high, which means when the next thing happens, not really a surprise, but it's still like, oh shit! And it's also a fake out, because she runs across the bridge, she's like, okay, she saved the thing out, the tension is resolved, there's nothing to worry about, except... oh no, wait, actually... she hasn't landed on... so the thing that's happening here, that's something that because of the montage format, it's not perfectly communicated, but you can see the rings here, right? Those are the rings of the back of the dragon. So when she runs over the bridge and jumps on here, the implication is that she lands on the dragon's back rather than landing on the slopes of a mountain, which... yeah, I'm not 100% sure if I think it works, but... then you get this shot of, like, these rings catching on fire and the thing bursting up from under the snow. And it turns out, oops, you've just landed on the back of a giant dragon. That's probably a problem. Now, remember what I said about there are monstrous and powerful forces on Targon that don't care even a little bit about the girl and her quest to save the goat? Here's example number 2 of that exact thing happening. Because the dragon doesn't know that she's clinging onto it. It's just doing dragon stuff on Targon. So it's her that's made the mistake. Like, again, it's this uncaring cosmos, which is the enemy. Which is the interesting thing about, like, the antagonist in this short is Targon itself. The climb, the environment, the dangers that you face there are the antagonist, essentially, of this story. It's a man versus nature story, if you subscribe to that particular mode of storytelling. And that communicates some of the themes around Targon, is that, like, that you feel very small against all of this. And what then matters? What is the thing that's going to let you transcend those difficulties, those challenges? What is it that's going to let you overcome it? What is it that's going to make you matter when you are tiny and insignificant against a grand and uncaring universe? Well... it's love. And this scene is cheap. This is some cheap bullshit. That's what that is. It's so cheap. It's so cheap because, like, oh yeah, the dragon's flying up. Oh no, she loses the grip on the little goat. And I see this, and immediately I get angry. Not because there's anything wrong with it, but because I know exactly what it's doing. Like, it's the most obvious play. Holy shit. This is called the all is lost moment. It's something that you often get, especially in 3-act story structures. It's the hero's lowest point. It's the moment of greatest tension. It's the moment where all things seem lost and you can't possibly imagine how things could ever turn out well. And that moment comes right before the transcendent climax, where our heroes overcome impossible odds in order to succeed in their journey. So, structurally, I know exactly what the fuck is happening. I know exactly what they're doing. I see every move you're making in your little director's chair there, Mr. Animation Director. I see the base and cheap manipulations of my emotions that you are setting into play right here, and it's not gonna work on me because I am a cynical man, and I don't think it's beautiful when the girl sacrifices herself to save a little thing. No! I will not cry! Not at something this obvious. No! No! This trope? No! I am a smart, brainy man who's intellectually analyzing this thing, and you can't make me cry! Except, of course, it could. Like, right at that moment, the first time I saw it, yeah, it's like, I had to pause and just go like, okay, fine. But it made me angry because... theoretically, you're not supposed to be able to get away with that, right? Like, you're not supposed to be able to make the most obvious, like, the most emotionally pandering move you could possibly make in that situation. It shouldn't work. Everybody who sees it should roll their eyes and go, oh, fucking this obvious trope again. But because, first of all, the animation is excellent. Second of all, because the story takes that little bit of time to establish the relationship between the girl and the thing. First, that she cares deeply about the stars, that she's obsessed, like she's staring at the night sky, she cares deeply for the stars and the cosmos. Second, that she cares deeply for this little Stellacorn. That's what they're called, Stellacorn. This little space goat. And that the two of them have a dynamic in a relationship where she has taken a lot of pains and she's gone through a lot of trouble multiple times on the climb so far to protect the thing from harm. First from, like, the battling aspects, who's, you know, threatened to unleash a solar rage on her face. Second, she saved it from falling down when the bridge collapsed underneath them. And now we get the third, which is she saves the poor little thing from falling. and like makes the decision, and again, another thing that makes this work so well, and we'll cover this more extensively once we do the full animation breakdown, but it's like you can tell that she's holding on with all her strength, and there, it's that. You see, it has a fairly relaxed expression here, right? But then you can see it realizes that it's slipping. Its eyes go wide, and it glides out of her grasp. And the animation sells it like you believe. And it's so cute. Like, that's also part of the manipulation. It's so cheap. Like, it's just the cheapest pop because it's so adorable. It's so cute. Like, you naturally, if you have a heart in your stony body, you naturally want to protect this fucking thing because it's so adorable. And so when it is in danger, your instinctive emotional reaction, however fucking cynical you may be, is still to go, I mean, I hope nothing bad happens to it. Maybe you're not quite as much of a sap as I am. I mean, I'm a pet owner and I'm, like, deeply emotional about animals at all times, but, like, you still have that thing of, like, just nothing bad better happen to this thing, because, like, that's kind of gonna suck. Like, even if you don't cry, it's still, you're gonna be like, oh, that would suck. Oh, please don't have it die because that would be bad. And that's enough. That's the hook that gets you. But it's this bit right here. There. The moment when you see her make the decision that this creature matters more than my safety. Like, protecting it matters more than my safety and my life. And even if it doesn't matter, I'm gonna at least try and grab it and break its fall so that it survives even if I die. And it all comes across in that expression. And that's good fucking like, that's good character performance. That's good animation. And then we get the transcendence. Like, it's the all is lost moment when they're falling, and it draws it out. Like, it's like one of those answers on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire when the person has given their final answer, and then the host is like, are you sure that's your final answer? Well, you could have answered A, you could have answered B, and you just, like, get to the fucking point, tell me if he's won $1 million. It's the same thing here, because she manages to catch it, and there's the hug where you can see how much she loves it. She manages to catch it, and then they fall through the clouds. Like, there isn't, like, this instant moment of the moment she catches it, oh, everything's gonna be fine. They fall through the clouds, and you can't see if there are rocks right there down below waiting to smash them to pieces. You can't see. And then they give you relief. And that's the other thing, is about, like, when you're doing these emotional manipulations, you have to carefully manage the tension. You have to give people that little moment on the edge of their seats where they go, I mean, they're gonna be fine, right? Like, that little tiny moment of doubt, just that second where you're like, I mean, they're not actually gonna let them die. Sure, we know how these stories, they're not gonna die. There's absolutely no way. So why are they falling for quite that long? Like, and it doesn't have to be like, it doesn't have to actually convince you that they're gonna die. It just has to give you that little spark in the back of your mind, that little moment of like, oh shit, what if they actually did though? Even if you know it's wrong, because that's the hook, that's the thing that gets you. Which is what makes the transcendent moment so good. The moment of transcendent overcoming, where her love for the thing, like, this is thematically, I don't know exactly in the lore how Stellacorns and their powers work, this doesn't matter, but in the narrative, in the thematic narrative of the storytelling that we've had so far, the thing that saves the creature is that it cares as much for her as she cares for it. And so its powers return right at the most perfect opportune moment to save them both, because it has to, in order, like, good storytelling is what I'm trying to say here. And that's also the release of the final tension. Like, that was the all is lost moment, and then we have the transcendent climax, and now all the tension is gone. And as an audience member, you're just like, okay, phew, everything's fine, everything's cool, nothing happened to the cute thing, that's good. And now we can do the unwinding, which is the outro, which is like when we unwind from the climax and we show the happy ending, essentially. And again, in terms of the narrative here, the transcendence here, if you want it to be really pretentious, and I do, oh, of course I do, you can see the moment, this moment right here, as apotheosis into heaven. Essentially, if you take as many heroes' journeys and many journeys through narratives are, like, can work as metaphors for journeys through life and, like, overcoming challenges and etc., then you can also see this actually as thematically, this is the moment of death. And having died after living a good life, this is ascendance to a glorious afterlife or a heaven. And that's actually supported by the imagery that we get here, because we ascend to, like, the gardens of paradise, essentially. Like, and that's not that's not an intended reading. Like, no, it's not. I'm not doing a game theory thing here where she's actually dead and the Stellacorn has taken her to heaven. No. But thematically, you can read it that way. Like, it appropriates some of the same imagery that you'd find in a story like that. And that kind of storytelling is also emotionally resonant for most people, like, whatever your religious background. And that's part of also what makes this good, is that there is this moment of, holy shit, we have entered this impossible realm, because we start on some like pretty basic ass, like, there's just some grass and stuff. Like, this is very normal world, and then this is very otherworldly, right? But again, that's if you want to be very pretentious as an art school about it, then you can construct a reading like that. You don't need to, but it's something that's kind of there. And then she says goodbye to it. I'm kidding. But it is, like, it is beautiful. If you love something, let it go. And that's where the finish of the story is essentially free to do what the short is actually supposed to do, which is advertise Legends of Runeterra. By showing you, ooh, here are some of the cool cards and monsters that you can play as in Legends of Runeterra. Aren't you excited about that? By literally just having, like, a little showcase of, like, flying past, like, the, what's it called, the Infinite Mind Splitter and the Arbiter of the Peak, and then showing Aurelian Sol, that bullshit card that's completely bullshit and totally unbalanced unless I'm the one playing it. So there's your reaction, I suppose. And that's a really, really effective and efficient 3-act structure that creates a framework from which you can do this montage where you basically cut out all of the fat. Like, you basically show no part of the journey. Like, you just skim over it and you just expect people to understand that, no, some more journey has happened in the background that you weren't aware of, even if the actual thing itself is like this very quick montage of, like, we go from the crater to traveling across some plains, and then we're higher up on the mountain where Leona and Diana are fighting, and then we're even higher up. Like, there's this very, very quick progression where presumably this journey will have taken weeks and weeks, because that's how it is in the lore. It takes weeks and weeks to get up the slopes of Mount Targon. It takes a very long time. It's a very difficult climb. But we skip over all of that because of the structure of the montage and our reliance on the audience already understanding how stories like this are supposed to play out, which is extremely efficient and very effectively done, and just great job to the writers and directors and the storyboarders for this, because creating such a rock-solid structure that you can just do that, you can just skim over everything, and it still feels like you're telling a full story, that's really fucking difficult. Like, really frickety fucking difficult. Anyway, let's get to the animation breakdown. Alrighty then. So, we've already discussed most of the structure that goes on here, so let's talk about some other things. Now, get ready for the meme, everyone, the funny meme, which is animated on twos, which is something we're going to have to talk about because frame rates here, once again, matter. Now, if you watched these animation breakdowns before, you'll probably remember that when it comes to animation, there's the question of the frame rate at which you animate. Now, frame rate is not necessarily a 100% accurate term to use for it, but it's one that you can kind of understand if you relate it to, for example, video games, whether a game runs at 30 frames per second or 60 frames per second, greatly affects how smooth it looks on your screen. And if you're playing a game at 10 frames a second, well, you've got a damn big problem, right? So when it comes to animation, what we have here is 3D animation. With some 2D elements, we'll get into that, but this is 3D animation, but in 3D animation, you theoretically don't have a frame rate limit. You can just tell the computer to generate more frames of animation for each thing that is happening. But as an artistic decision, you may want to limit yourself to particular frame rates, particular amounts of frames per second in order to achieve particular feelings in the animation. And that is very much true for this animated short, which does something that a lot of 3D animation in recent times have started to do, which is it mimics the feel and timing of 2D animation by artificially limiting how many frames it generates. And you can see that very clearly right here, because the camera, this video footage is moving at 30 frames per second, or 24? One or the other, doesn't matter. Which is like the standard frame rate that you get in like a YouTube video. I imagine this is probably running at 30 frames per second. But as you can see, the characters in this frame, the camera is moving up and down. You can see it shifting a little bit, but the characters remain entirely static. Then they move, then they're static, then they move, then they're static, then they move, then they're static, then they move, then they're static. And that's the reason why this animation has the particular feel that it does. Pay attention to the feel of the movement of these characters. It has this slightly staccato edge to it, doesn't it? Like this slight sense of jerkiness, just a little bit, that doesn't feel quite natural. And there's a couple of reasons for that. For one thing, this short does not use motion. Well, it does use motion blur. We'll get into that later, but it doesn't use traditional motion blur. What you see in a lot of 3D animation nowadays is that they apply motion blur to the action that happens on screen, even when motion blur theoretically shouldn't exist. Motion blur is an artifact of, well, it's an artifact of a number of things. It can happen in post-processing of images, and can happen in the recording of images, depending on the exposure of the camera, whatever. There's a lot of reasons why motion blur happens, but motion blur tends to be a feature both of, like, real movies where you film actual people with cameras and stuff. There tends to be motion blur there, and it tends to be a feature also of 3D animation, which likes to try and mimic what happens with a real camera. But this animation doesn't do that, and you can see why as I frame by frame my way carefully through this thing, because the characters, as you can see, are moving kind of as though they were being animated in stop motion, where they move from one position to the next with no gliding transition. Like, they don't use any motion blur to smooth the transition from this position to that position. They just teleport the character from this position to that position with absolutely no transition in between. And that's part of what gives this animation the feeling, because you can do the same thing where you are, this is called animating on twos, by the way, because you're animating on every second frame. Some parts of this animation is also created on ones, which means it animates on every frame. The camera, for example, is always moving on ones. But in animation, you can also move on 3s and 4s. You can move on 5s if you really want to, 6s, 7s, up to 16s. Like, depending on exactly what the needs of the animation are, you can move at some, like, really, really low frame rates and still technically have animation going on. But most animation, certainly if you watch a Disney movie, will be animated on 2s for quite a lot of the action, occasionally on 1s, sometimes on 3s and 4s. Anime tends to be in the lower range, like they tend to work on 3s, 4s, sometimes 8s, depending on the action that's happening, and they use limited animation principles as well. They don't come into play in this one. There's a lot of technical talk, but basically the reason why the feeling of the movement in this animation is the way it is because they've made the decision to, first of all, animate on 2s, and second of all, animate on 2s most of the time, and second of all, not use any artificial motion blur, if they can help it. I think maybe there's a little bit of motion blur on the little guy's wings as he flaps them, maybe. Or that could just be like an artifact of the resolution. Who knows? It could be in the processing. But when they do need blur, and they do need blur sometimes, they do it in a different way, which you shall get to see here. This is how they do motion blur in this animated short. You see that smearing right there? Now, as far as I can make out, it might be something that they're generating digitally, which you can do, I believe. I believe that is possible. But what it looks like to me, or rather what they're actually doing, is they're mimicking how you create animation smears in 2D animation. Like, this is something, if I was drawing a comic page and I wanted to show the character, like, quickly vaulting over a ledge, I might use that kind of effect, where essentially you draw, as you can see, like a bunch of lines in the same color as the thing that's moving quickly in order to smear it out and give you that sense of quick motion. And that's something that's going to come into play a lot more once Leona and Diana start fighting. You can really see it here, for example. Like, you can see how Leona's entire profile, like, she's barely more than a color smear here, right? Like, she's like this blob of barely distinct anything, where you can see they're using a lot of this, like, granular oil paint style looking smearing all over the character to sort of help communicate the tremendous speed with which she's moving. But even though the camera's moving close and fast in on the girl, she has no smearing on her. But these characters, the fighters, once they get moving, they have tons of smearing on them. Look at Diana here, for example, smearing all over the place. Now, again, this can probably be generated with some kind of 3D animation tool. Like, I would not be surprised if you could just tell it, like, to give it a direction of animation, then tell it to smear whatever the brightest or most prominent colors are on the edges of a model. But what it looks like to me, anyway, is that this is hand-painted, like that the smears, specifically, are applied by hand over the top of the 3D model as it moves. That's certainly what it looks like. I may be wrong about that, it's really hard to tell. But you can see the effect of it here is that even when this image is standing completely stock still, we're not moving it at all, you still get a sense of tremendous speed and motion going on here, because these techniques are borrowed straight out of anime and manga, especially manga, which, if you have a shot in like a shonen manga where a character is darting quickly towards someone else, it would probably look quite a lot like this, with the same aesthetic of smearing, in order to communicate the speed. And it works like gangbusters in motion too, like as you've seen if you watch this short 500 times like I have. You really do get that sense of, like, tremendous powers clashing with one another. Right? Like, oh my god, it looks so fucking good. And that's how they handle motion blurring in this particular animated short, because they have no motion blur on the model otherwise. They apply it the moment they need it, but it also, because they use this method of applying selective smearing, that also means that they can choose not to blur certain things, like, for example, Leona's face right here. And that comes into play a little bit later. We'll skip ahead for a second here. Here. That comes into play here, because again, we have fast movement, and by the way, once again, you can see that the character is animated on 2s down here, while the rest of the environment is animated on 1s. But here it comes into play, because here we have a tremendous amount of blurring as they're being whipped up over the edge of the cliff by the rope that they're holding onto. But notice what's not being blurred in these frames. Her face. Thank you very much, Poem a Day. That's very kind of you to tell me that there's a poem in my inbox. Her face, and even the goat's face, is not being blurred. Even though everything else is completely blurred out, we still get the mouth and the eyes and the face of the girl as we whip around here. And it's a subtle thing, but take a look at it in motion. Did you catch that? Watch it again. If you pay attention, even though you don't really pick up on it consciously, necessarily, but because the face is always visible, and because the human brain is incredibly good at decoding and identifying faces, even in very blurry material, which is why sometimes people will see Jesus in their toast, here, like, it preserves that clarity of motion and clarity of character, so that even though this is on screen, like, her face is on screen for like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frames, that's all you get, you still kind of get a sense of her expression as she darts past you right there. And that's what you can do when you can do this selective motion blurring rather than just like doing a realistic motion blur where everything that's moving fast would be blurred equally. As just a really clever little thing. Anyway, let's just reverse this scene. And it looks great in reverse as well. I really like that. And this is one of the things I really appreciate is that when there is no, emulated motion blur, when they're not emulating the motion blur of cameras, that means that I can freeze frame literally anywhere I want. And everything is clear, and we can see exactly what's happening, and nothing is blurred out and indistinct. And that's really lovely. It's just a thing that I really like. This is so good. So notice the composition that's going on here, which is going on like right from the beginning in terms of the color symbolism of what's happening here, is that we encounter Leona, as we just rewind manually. We encounter Leona standing in a ray of sun, and arrayed against her is already here. There is this shadow in front of her, and she charges into it. And then, boom, she gets knocked back by Diana's, whatever the hell this is. Probably her E? I don't know. Her shield thing, probably. And once again here, Leona outlined with the sun at her back and something darker and more shadowy in front of her. And then Diana coming out of the shadows. And by the way, notice the colors as well. That's the thing I want to talk about. Lots of oranges, browns, a little bit of purple-ish going on there. Lots of warm colors, reds and things like that. Diana walks out of this cold shadow that's nothing but purples and blues. And she has the shadow at her back, and you can see she has the light, the sun, in front of her. So the color symbolism, and you can see she charges into the sunlight. But even here, she's got a shadow at her back, you see? And even here, she charges from the shadows into the sunlight. And Leona charges from the sunlight into the shadows. So the colors and the cinematography and just the way that the shots are staged constantly reinforce Leona and Diana's thematic roles related to each other. Even if you've never played any League of Legends before, even if you've never seen anything related to League of Legends, you understand instantly, okay, this is light versus shadow. This is light versus darkness. You instantly understand that that's the dichotomy at play here, that there's this yin and yang dynamic thing. Just from the way that the shots are staged, just from the way the colors and like this use of light and dark at the front and back of each character is used to communicate their relationship to one another. And here the effects animation does a ton of work, because this slash that we get on the two of them, right? It's not that much. Like, it doesn't get like this huge wind-up of like incredible power clashing, but that doesn't really matter, because we have incredible effects animation to take up the slack for us. Effects animation, which a good portion of it is probably hand animated, but because of the aesthetic, it's a little hard to tell. And then we get a repeat, which I like, which is another thing that anime especially is fond of, but which also works really well in other contexts. We get the clash here, boom, and then we zoom in, and then we get the clash again, like exactly the same clash, and these absolutely gorgeous frames. Where, again, notice the color symbolism, even in this flash frame, this is one frame. It's only on screen one frame. You don't get to see it consciously with your eyes, but your brain registers that over here, blues, over here, yellows and reds and oranges. Over here, purples and blues and white, yellow, red, and orange. So the colors of the two characters are constantly in play, constantly reinforcing their dynamic. Even here, you can see like Diana's power flames, whatever they are blue, and hers are yellow. And there's also another bit of subtler storytelling going on here, because one of the meta-narratives of Targon, one of the meta-narratives of what's going on with Leona and Diana, is that their conflict is actually destructive to the world. Like, one of the things that, at least as far as the lore is setting up, is that they have to learn to overcome their religious bigotries and resolve the conflict between the aspect of the sun and the aspect of the moon, because they're supposed to be united as one. They are not supposed to be at war with each other. That's some religious nonsense that's going on with mortals that really shouldn't apply to their celestial roles as characters, which means that Diana now, because she hates Leona so much, pretty justifiably, to be honest, is currently burning through her power at a terrifying rate that threatens to actually destroy her. And Leona, because she can't let go of that fucking Solari zealotry that's been built into her from the start, is never going to be able to live up to her full power and responsibility as the aspect of the sun. The two of them need each other, and the longer that they are in conflict with each other for no good goddamn reason, except they have lots of good reasons to be in conflict with each other, especially because Leona did Diana wrong, but so long as they're in conflict, their conflict will cause harm to innocents, which is being communicated here in a way that doesn't interfere with our main narrative of the girl braving dangers in order to climb the mountain, but in a way that like, if you know the lore of League of Legends, kind of enriches, oh, right, that's why their conflict is stupid and bad, because as long as they keep fighting and don't pay attention to anything else around them, even though they should, innocents are going to get hurt in the wake of their pointless squabble. And they have a greater responsibility as aspects to prioritize protecting, you know, the human beings of Runeterra over their own interpersonal conflicts. Anyway, let's look at some fucking badass fight animation. So look at Diana. Clever thing being done with her hair here, as she is jumping up into this spin strike, and you can just see all of her hair has this spiral-looking motion flowing around her body, really emphasizing what she's doing with her blade. And you can see these animation smears being applied as well, really emphasizing like the twist and the spin and the whooshing. And oh, that's a good expression. Like that's I'm gonna fucking blast you in the face, you ass. It's a good expression too, and there's so much twisting going on with her body as well. This is breaking the model a little bit, but like a human anatomy is not necessarily realistically capable of doing everything Diana is doing here, but it's breaking the model just briefly in order to emphasize the strength of the move. And again, notice the blue of Diana's, like anytime even when her weapon clashes with the ground, there's blue in there to emphasize like her color symbolism. And even still, in this shot, Leona has the sun at her back, Diana has the shadows at her back. It's consistent, it's constant, and it's really, really well executed. And then we get Leona's counterattack, and again, the use of smearing, where she's essentially kind of cutting this smoke cloud in half and dragging it behind her sword to emphasize the smear of her weapon. And now the camera is bragging. Now they're showing off because the camera is rotating. You can see it if you look at the ground. The camera rotates around these two characters as Leona does this circular swing and Diana dodges under it. She, like, turns her back, jumps over Leona's shield, which is following up on her attack. Woof. And then Leona swings back and Diana does this badass somersault, like, whoom, right over there. And notice again how the animation smearing is being applied selectively because the camera is rotating, so we smear out the background. The background now becomes nothing but an indistinct color blur, but the characters, the bits of them that matter, remain consistently clear and only very selectively blurred throughout the fight. Here, Diana's face is... I mix up Leona and Diana. God damn it, Diana and Leona. I mix them up a lot when I talk about them. Her face is completely unblurred, but her body, you can see, has a lot of blurring applied to it to really communicate the speed of her motion. And not to be that guy, but that back right there. Ooh, that's gorgeous. Anyway, give her a real armor, though. Like, what is this fucking bikini thing she's got? She needs a chest plate or something. Like, I appreciate this as much as the next dude, but honestly, Riot, for God's sake. Like, is this cloth? Is it cloth? Is it a jumpsuit? That she's at a body condom? What the hell is she wearing? Is it pleather armor? What is it? I don't know. She needs a better armor. Anyway, that's character design. That's for a different story. Again, the smear just creates this beautiful cutting arc. And the camera, like the constant rotation of the camera, creates this incredible dynamism in the fight scene. Like everything is in motion all the time. Take a look at how it looks. Right, you get this, oh, it just looks so freaking good. And, as we talked about previously, this fight scene is not animated on 2s, it is largely animated on 1s, which is to say the characters move pretty much in every single frame. Like, there's very few occasions where a character will freeze for a single frame, or they'll hold a pose, like Leona is doing here. She's just, like, holding the pose, but you can see there's secondary motion still happening on her character. Her skirt is flapping, her hair is going all over the place. But here we're mostly moving on ones. We're still doing it with this stop motion aesthetic of like teleporting a character from frame to frame without doing too much smearing in between. But that's necessary for this scene to play out. Like, I don't think you could... I mean, you could animate this fight scene on 2s, but it wouldn't look as good. So here they're doing it on 1s because they really need that smoothness to make that action read. They need it to make it read correctly. And by the way, this sunbeam... First of all, you can see the differential animation happening here. You can see how this bit of the animation moves on this frame, but the rest of it doesn't. You can see the same thing with smoke. So there's here we have differential frame rates where everything is still moving on 2s, but you can see the different parts of the there's always something happening every single frame, but not everything in frame moves on every single frame. So you get this differential where like on one frame some parts of it move, on the next frame some other parts of it move. And that creates a wonderfully dynamic look. And this is all, as far as I can tell, none of this is 3D animated. As far as I can tell, all of this sunbeam nonsense and the lightning and the effects, like there's some post-processing applied as well, but all of that seems to me to be hand animated by someone. Which makes it all the more impressive when we have this sunbeam thing going into this beautiful foreshortening, like blasting straight into the screen. And again, the clever little use of selective motion blur, just to show that she's whipping around to try and find a way out of there. And here, because, again, she needs to act with... There's a certain smoothness with which she needs to act, she's animating on 1s in this particular shot. As this bit of just beautifully hand-animated mayhem in the background chases her. It's gorgeous, like, oh, excellent. But yeah, she's animated on 1s here. And again, shadows behind Diana, light behind Leona. So good. It's just so good. Oh, here we have a hold. Where, like, the thing you can do is, like, depending on what's the timing that you need here, right? For Diana doing the sword slash, most of it is on 1s. You can see she moves on every frame. But this bit, we need this to hold. We need just one extra moment of this to really communicate that the sword strike is incoming. And if you pay attention, you can see the timing, right? You can see how there's this thing, like that little tiny delay there right before the sword strike goes through. That works really well. And then there's this bit. From a perspective of the story, I don't fully understand why we have this disarming moment. Because in the storytelling of a fight scene, a character being disarmed is usually a moment of, oh my god, they're in trouble, they're about to lose the fight, they need to do something to regain the upper hand or something like that. Like in terms of the storytelling, if this was a fight scene that was being told with the whole short, this would be the moment of like Diana being in trouble and like Leona almost gaining the upper hand and nearly winning the fight, and oh, what's the drama? How's she gonna come back in this thing? But that's not what's being done here. Like, they make the point of Diana losing her weapon, and they track it all the way up as it swings around, and they track it as it falls back into the ground. But the only point of having the sword do this, to me, seems to be so that they can have the girl running through the reflection. Like, that seems to be the only point of it. I'm not really sure from a directorial standpoint, storytelling standpoint, why they have this moment of peril for Diana here, specifically. And I love these smears. These smears are so good. Like, look at that. Look how they break the model. So she raises her arm up, right? She's about to whip it backwards in conjunction with the rest of her movement. So look how much they break the character model. Like, we go from a hand that's relatively... Okay, that looks like a plausible hand, a way that a hand could possibly look. And then, whoop, all of a sudden it's rubber. All of a sudden it's spaghetti. Whoa, spaghetti-o. And then as it whips back, it turns back into like a reasonable looking hand. But you get this moment of deformation that's straight out of like classic Disney animation for a quick motion to give it this whip like like she's whipping her arm back and forth as she's running as fast as she possibly can. And we also get her animated once again on a differential of 2s and 1s. Like here she's animated on 2s. No, I don't want to help you with my opinion. It annoys me that my email... I can't turn those fucking email pop-ups off for some reason. It bothers me. But then here, because she needs to do some slightly smoother movement, there's a little bit of animated on 1s, and then we're back to animating her on 2s. So you can see how the animator is constantly making choices about how many frames do I need in this interval in order to communicate the motion that I need for the character's performance to come through. And that can change, like, from shot to shot, or even within a shot. You can have changes in, like, when do I need to be moving on 1s? When do I need to be moving on 2s? And so here, as she's flying slowly through the air during this, like, dramatic slow motion thing, you can have plenty of little holds where she stays in one pose, like, and transitions a little bit jagged out of them. And then, this gorgeous smearing again. Looks so good. Whee! I kind of love this. She's just hovering. She's just vibing, just hanging out. But yeah, as we discussed in the reaction portion, the first release of tension. Like, this is the first major conflict, the first major danger, and now the tension is released. So, now we get this lovely top-down shot of Leona and Diana continuing fighting, even though, like, again, they haven't even really noticed that they put someone else in danger with their conflict. But when it comes to fight animation from this perspective, right? There's not that much point in going all out and being super extra and animating it like you did when you had all these badass action close-ups right here. No point doing that when the character's that far away because, like, the audience can't see all that fancy footwork and animation. So what do we do instead? Practically nothing. If we... Let me just zoom in on this. So you see, like, here, the characters are barely doing anything. Right? They're doing just the bare minimum that they need to do in order to communicate that they're making moves, but there really isn't much character animation to them. So the job of selling the power of their clash and how dramatic it all is, that all comes down to this stuff. The effects animation. The effects animation tells us, boom, oh, that was a really powerful hit. Even if the characters themselves are doing barely anything, we get this bright flash and yeah, boom, and she gets pushed back. And they're not doing anything, really. But because we have this excellent effects animation doing so much work, you still get the sense that there's an epic clash going on, even though the animators, like, smartly have decided not to spend a bunch of time very carefully animating a complex fight choreography for the characters. We just kind of throw them at one another with some effects behind them, and then you get the sense that there's a cool fight happening down there far away, but you don't need to bother with the details. Which is something else we often talk about when it comes to these animation breakdowns. It's like, pick your battles. Like, even in a super high quality, gorgeous animation like this one, a lot of the time, when you pay close attention to the stuff that isn't in focus, like the stuff that isn't all right up there on screen, it's just a bunch of shortcuts. Like, it's animators and production people finding ways to, okay, how can we make this come across as really, really nice without having to put in, like, 14 hours of effort that's not going to produce that much of an increase in quality to the thing. Okay, let's just take a shortcut and make it easy on ourselves. Which is part of how... we've talked about the Tales of Runeterra shorts on this channel before. Most of those, not a lot of constructed 3D environments in those ones. Like, most of those Tales of Runeterra shorts take place, like, against a series of flat two-dimensional backdrops, basically matte paintings, where they had some illustrators sit down and just paint the backgrounds flat, and then we animate some characters within those backgrounds, which it limits what you can do with the camera in any given scene, but the trade-off is that you don't have to spend, like, umpteen hours, like God knows how long, creating models and lighting rigs and textures and lighting environments and like diffusion maps and God knows what else needs to be put in place in order to create a 3D environment that looks like cartoony, realistic-ish to the extent that you need. You just have to worry about the characters and have them act against what's essentially a flat backdrop. That's one of those shortcuts where it's like, okay, but do we really need a fully modeled 3D environment for the action that we're planning, or can we just have a few 3D models acting within a 2D environment and that's good enough? That's one of the shortcuts, and that's something that also, again, it's a little hard to tell, but that's also something that happens in this short right here. Because these rocks, this background, this is not 3D modeled, I don't think. These are 2D illustrations upon which the characters are doing three-dimensional acting. So you have this bit of the rock here, which is defined as a layer in front of the two character models as they're walking across the backdrop. And by the way, once again, the characters here are walking, right? Like the girl and the little goat thing, they're walking. But again, notice that there's not, like, the animator hasn't spent 5 hours creating the perfect walk cycle for this shot. They're just kind of vaguely jiggling them around a little bit and moving them across the screen, and that's plenty. But also, again, the backgrounds here are all 2D painted. They're matte paintings. All this lighting isn't being generated in real time by a 3D engine. At least I don't think so. If they are doing that, then I commend them, because that's a lot of effort to put in for just this one shot for no reason. But if you watch a Pixar movie, usually most of the environments in such a film, or indeed in a Disney movie, they will be properly 3D modeled to various extents. But when you're doing like a animated short to advertise a video game on the internet, maybe you don't have that kind of budget to put into creating every single environment for one little animated short like this one, so matte paintings it is. That does create a challenge, by the way, for the artists and environment animators, though, because, like, you have to match the lighting on the character to whatever the lighting in the background is. Like, when you have a scene like this, where all of this light, all of this blue light, all of this white light, all of this stuff, this is all painted onto the scene by an artist, then the lighting people for your animation, like the visual effects people for the 3D animation, have to be really careful that the lighting on the character itself matches the character of the lighting in the environment. Because if it doesn't, then you get this inconsistency that most people, even though they can't necessarily articulate it, they'll be like, oh, that character just doesn't fit it. Like, they look very awkwardly slotted in there, kind of an uncanny valley kind of thing happening, which they avoid brilliantly here. As you can see, like, they're very carefully matching the lighting environment of the environment itself to the lighting environment on the characters. And that's one of those invisible disciplines that it's easy not to think about. But for every single shot in this thing, someone has to, like, mind the lighting. Someone has to keep very careful track of exactly what kind of light is it, how does that light interact with the skin texture of the characters, how does it interact with the feathers of the little goat thing, how does it interact with her hair, how does it interact with the metal on her horns, how does it interact with the ground, with the rocks, how do we get all of those lighting colors to stay consistent so that we have this blue light on the edge of the character back here that's being generated by the star field in the background, but then this red and orange light that's being generated by the fire. That's a lot of work as well, and that takes a lot of expertise, and someone has to do that for every single shot in this goddamn thing. And that's one of those invisible workloads with animation that it's kind of easy not to think about, but which is incredibly important to making the thing feel correct, because if the lighting on this character here had been wrong in this shot, it wouldn't look like she was standing on the bridge. She would look like she was just kind of hovering there weirdly from some alternate dimension. And when the bridge breaks and you have to feel tension about, holy shit, she needs to run right now, this is dangerous, you wouldn't feel that tension because you wouldn't really believe that she is there. And that's the importance of the lighting and the texture and all of that work and the color work that goes into it, is to place the character in the environment in a believable way. Which is difficult. Like, it's hard. I fail at it regularly when I draw comics, and they're just 2D, you know? Anyway, this transition. So, again, the idea here seems to be that she, like, jumps off the bridge, lands on this ledge, and then we get this shot of, like, oh, these fire rings, which are actually, like, attached to the back of the dragon, and then the dragon rises out of the snow, or whatever, where it's not 100% clear she woke it, or what the hell's going on, but because they're replicating the in Viola's Rex card art, it's not really clear to me of, like, wait, but where was the bridge? Where is she? Because the rings are all the way up there on the back, so she must be around here, right? But then where the hell did that bridge come? Did that bridge come from over? Where was the bridge? Like, there's some discontinuity between the two shots that my brain at least can't really resolve. But it also doesn't matter that much. Like, in terms of the storytelling, doesn't matter that much. This is just, like, this is rule of cool. This shit looks cool as hell, so don't worry about it. But it is a thing where, like, I'm like, wait, how did she get on the dragon's... Because of the scale, because of the way the camera handles it, there's something about that has a discontinuity thing for me. But I don't know if that's something that bothered anyone else, or if it's just me being particular about it. And again, notice the emulated motion blur here in the background, being applied only selectively. And I love the oil paint aesthetic that they've got going on here. Like, I don't know if Riot shared technology with them after the Annie short. Like, I don't know if... Like, I don't even remember if I think Annie's Origins animated short, the one that was animated like a moving oil painting, I think that was an internal production at Riot. If I remember correctly, I don't think they had outside consultation or outside contractors working on it. But the visual aesthetics of this thing are very similar in a lot of ways, and I don't know if Riot shared technology or if Inimage just had that tech on lock themselves. I'd be curious to know. That's some background production stuff. By the way, subtle little thing, but anime speedlines. White and black, helping to sell the speed and motion of like this pan or this zoom down the dragon's back to one of the rings where she's holding on. And by the way, the character animation, like they can't go too extreme with her. Like, I don't think they can do like cartoony character model breaking in the same way that you can in 2D, where you really screw a character's face up and go, "Argh," like really exaggerate the expression. But when you look at this character right here, like, you get the sense of, okay, she's holding on for dear life. She's clinging on to this poor thing. This probably hurts quite a bit. Like, it's not... You get that from the expression on the characters, that this is, like, oh, fuck, this is rough shit. And also, again, the performance on the little critter. Because here it's calm, but you can see the moment it realizes that, uh-oh, I'm slipping. You get that little eyelid lifting a little bit. You get the highlight coming into the eye, really emphasizing that its eyes are widening in shock as it realizes that, oh no, oh god. And you can see that on her as well, because you see, she doesn't quite notice it immediately. Like, there's this moment of like, wait, hang on. And then her eyes snap down, and the eyebrows go up, and she's like, oh no, no, no. As the poor adorable little thing is falling down, and you can see it's scared, and it's so cheap, but it works on me. And there, oh, it's such a good move. Like, that right there is such a good fucking move. Because you see, like, she's looking down, her mouth is hanging open, her eyebrows go up, she's realizing exactly what's happened. Like, it's you can see it takes a moment for it to quite sink in, but the moment she understands what's happened, you also get this moment of, there. Like, it's from here to here. There's the moment where you can see she clenches her jaw and goes, well, fuck, I know what I have to do, and I'm gonna do it. It's that little gesture with the mouth, and you can see how the eyebrows come down a little bit more. Like, it's like she's knitting her brows a little bit, like she's clenching, she's steeling herself for what she has to do. That little switch from this expression to that expression, that's the moment when you know that she's gonna let go. And so she does. And that's what makes it effective. That's what makes it fucking work. Like, that's what makes a grown man cry. I'm not crying right now, I'm kidding. But, like, that's the thing that sells it. Like, and by the way, notice the reversal here? I don't know if this is fully intentional, but it's a clever little thing. Because we start the short, where are we? 2 minutes 6, okay. We start the short staring up at the sky here, right? And she is on the ground. Like, she's an earthling, essentially. And the Stellacorn that comes down comes from the sky as an alien. But now look at this shot. Who's coming from the sky now? And who's closer to the Earth? It's an interesting reversal. I don't know if it's fully intentional. Like, this might just be a cool shot, that where you have this division of the sky and the Earth, like this epic scope and scale, so that you can really see how far they have to fall. And I love the detail that there's a... is that a shooting star, or is that just a ember of fire from the dragon's back? Probably just an ember. But I do like the visual reversal that now she's falling from the stars in order to save this little thing. Which begs the question whether it came from the stars at the start, maybe to save her. To show her this adventure, like to save her from boredom and from the normal life that she had. And again, character performance. Because she's falling to her death right now. Just to be clear, that's what's happening. She's falling to her death. She's definitely gonna die. But look what she cares about. Nothing else. Just the little goat. And when she grabs it, this is not just a hug, this is a, like, wherever you go, I'll go with you. Nothing will keep us apart. Like, this is not just, oh, I've got you. This is, I'll never let you. This is love. Like, you see that in the way that she's grasping it close to her chest. And that's good character animation. Like, that's a great character performance where you can see exactly how she's feeling. Exactly the emotion that's driving her actions, that's making her do what she's doing. And also, the moment she gets a hold of it, notice something else? Its eyes close, and it's comforted. It feels safe in her arms. And again, all character performance. And this is the thing that saves them both, of course. And you get the foreshadowing of it as they fall. Because here, barely see them, but oh, hey, they start lighting up. The glow begins to happen as the Stellacorn finds its powers. But like this right here, this is just exceptional character performance. And again, the selective blurring. We've got all this smearing happening on every part of the characters except their faces because we need to know how they feel right now. That's the thing that's going to sell the emotion of the moment. Gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. I love these flash frames. Absolutely beautiful. And again, some lovely effects animation. So, the thing that's happening here, we have these clouds in the background. These, I believe, are either they're part of the matte painting or they are CGI generated. I think they're part of the matte painting, probably. So over top of that, we layer this hand-animated cloud bit that sort of swells and like it grows and starts to glow. And then those clouds explode. Kaboom! Another excellent flash frame. And so what you get is the visual effect of, oh, hey, the power of the little goat's explosion parted the clouds, but you never have to animate these clouds in the background. You don't have to do that. You just have this flash frame, poof, cover up the moment when you just despawn the clouds in the background a little bit and replace them with a different look so that you get this hole in the clouds, and it looks like it was punched by the explosion of power from the Stellacorn. But what actually happened is you just use this to cover up a moment where you switch from one cloud cover to another, which is clever, which is very well done. And poof. Gorgeous. By the way, I'm not the only one who was crying for a second there. You can see it on her as well, that she was pretty much resigned to what was gonna happen. And then this fucking little goat, oh, you're just all happy now, are you? You're just like, yeah, hey, hi, everything's cool, I'm happy, everything's great, I'm smiling, why aren't you happy? Oh, I guess just falling to my death, apparently, but okay, I guess you're fine. I guess you're happy, you little shit, you goddamn little monster, I love you. As we resolve the tension. And once again, here we are animating on twos. It's hard to see, because nothing in the background is really moving, but I don't know if you can hear me tapping out the advance frame button. But here you can see it a little clearer, because the background is moving. But here we're back to animating on 2s because we don't need to animate on 1s to communicate the feeling here. And this lovely camera swoop. I really like it because you get this, like, here the background is practically just pitch black, right? Like, with some variation on it. And then you get this swoop. And then you get this, boom, the whole sky, the whole world opens up before them. So you get this indeterminate backdrop where you can't really see where are they, what's the environment like, what's going on, what kind of place have we landed in. And then you get this reveal, like, whoa. Imagine if instead you had a background here that already showed some of these features, like that already had, like, oh, waterfalls, like floating rocks or whatever. But no, the reveal is managed really, really well. The reveal comes and it's like, whoa. Gorgeous place, what the hell, man. And that's really well managed. And you get a long time to kind of take it in. Like, it swoops into view here. Like, here you already kind of get a sense of it. And then all this time, until the cut to the other stellar coins, that's just time given to you by the animation director. You're just like, look how cool this shit is. Damn. And then, oh my god, there's more cute things. And it has found its family. And she realizes that she's done what she set out to do. So now we have to say goodbye. And there's sadness there. Again, character performance. There's sadness there between the two of them. Where you can see, like, she's like, okay, well, I guess this is a goodbye. But it's not like it's not like it's falling down and dying. She doesn't have to worry about it anymore. You can see she's close to shedding a tear here. This is a happy goodbye. Like, this is... I've done what I set out to do. And it's gonna be safe now. And we're okay with that. We're at peace with it. And in return for having the courage to let it go, which is difficult, she gets to see the wonders of Targon. The Arbiter of the Peak. And eventually, Aurelian himself. And now Aurelian here... Let me have a look at you, kiddo. Because... Yeah, okay. Right, so... The first time I saw this, I was genuinely not sure if he was 2D or 3D animated. Because there's a lot of line work on him, right? You got all these outlines of the various parts of his body, and the rest of him is translucent. And I could not tell if it was a 3D model. And even now, looking at it, being reasonably convinced that it's probably a 3D model just because of the consistency with which it moves. I think maybe something like the hand here might be not 3D. I'm genuinely not sure. I'm not sure. I think he's a 3D model with a lot of translucency and transparency effects applied over the top of it. Because I'm not seeing the kind of boiling and shape inconsistency that you kind of should see on 2D animation, but I'm genuinely not sure. Like, this could be just them flexing by doing some incredible fucking 2D animation right at the end. But I think it's a 3D model, or at the very least they've rotoscoped over a 3D model to create. But there's this flickering. Like, there's just, I don't know. I'm not sure. I think. And then we end, by the way, as we started. Which is a lovely little book ending, because we start with this shot. And then we end on pretty much exactly the same thing. Which is a nice, visually speaking, that's a nice way to bookend it. It's a good way to sort of put a close to the story as we end. To kind of repeat the shot from the start. Which also indicates that, like, yes, that was the end of one part of the adventure. But now she's seen something even greater than just the night sky. Now she's seen the wonders of Targon. And you can kind of see that on her face as she, like, grasps the handles on her backpack and goes, well, on to the next thing. And it's just gorgeous. Like, this is such a gorgeous animated short. I really hope Unimash makes more for League of Legends, because I enjoy the hell out of all of these. Like, it's not just that the animation is pretty and the colors are nice, and the colors are gorgeous, especially in this meteor. We actually kind of didn't talk about it, but the shooting star bit, Look at all the pinks. Look at that like that bright teal and the purple and along with the white. It's just a gorgeous way to... Anyway, but along with all of that, it's just very well directed. Like, there's such a great sense of pacing, there's such a great establishment and creation of character and character dynamics, so that you care about these characters, even though you spend barely more than 3 minutes with them. You invest in their emotional states and the things that they're trying to do, and the adventure that they're on, to the point where, like, saps like me get tears in their eyes, which is just, it's hard to do. It's hard to get that shit right. It takes a good director, it takes a good writer, and it takes some damn good storyboarders as well. So, props to Unimage and whoever worked with them at Riot for creating this thing, because this, oh god, it's gorgeous. Absolutely wonderful. This is the kind of thing that makes me excited for the League of Legends universe. Like, because even here, I have a million nitpicks with Leona's stupid armor. Like, give her something better, Riot, than this fucking bikini thing. Why does she still have that? Anyway, but when it looks this good in motion, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna put my nitpicks aside, and I'm just gonna think that this is cool as hell. Because, goddamn, does it look brilliant. Anyway, that's enough out of me. I've talked for long enough, I think. So if you've enjoyed this unhinged ramble about the glorious animation in this particular animated short, like, comment, subscribe. You can do those things. I mean, I wouldn't blame you if you're like, oh, maybe we should stay away from that crazy guy, but I would appreciate it. And the reason why I ask you to click the buttons is because algorithm. The YouTube algorithm, if people watch the video but they don't click on the things, then the YouTube algorithm goes, oh, well, I guess they didn't care that much about the video, and then you get buried in the algorithm, and then it's harder to pay rent, so that's why I ask you to do that. Anyway, if you want to help me out more directly than just clicking buttons on YouTube, then I have a Patreon, I have a merchandise store, and there's also a tip jar. You can use any of them if you want, and that direct support is very helpful for me, but if you don't want to, that's completely okay as well. At the end of my videos, though, I do try to emphasize that if you have online content that you enjoy, especially from niche content creators or smaller content creators, try to support them directly with anything you can, whenever you can, because that $1 donation can be quite literally the same as thousands or tens of thousands of views on a video, depending on how nice the algorithm is to that particular person. So, whether it's me or someone else, I don't really... Well, I do care a little bit, but I don't care that much. Whether it's me or someone else, if you have online content that you enjoy, please consider supporting it directly with anything you can, whenever you can, because it matters so much more than you think. Anyway, right, last thing I have to promote. I have a second channel. I do Let's Plays over there. We play Legends of Runeterra over there again, by the way, so if you want to watch me be bad at card games, then you can go over there and do that. Also, Final Fantasy X, other things as well. Subscribe to that if you want to. I'd appreciate it. Thank you very much. Is that it? Yes, I'm done. I'm done. You can go now. Please remember to wear a mask, and please, for the love of God, remember to wash your hands.